Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Freiberger, and today we're going to be doing yet another world forecast. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got to talk about severe weather. We have tornado chances, large hail, and damaging winds. Also, some snow, some rain, a lot of things to go over across the globe. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. All right, now looking at the United States, you can see we have this storm that's going to be making it into the United States over here on the Pacific Northwest. And in fact, it's been upgraded over here to a 2% tornado risk that includes Astoria, Salem, Florence, Brookings, and Eureka. So watch out there. That's mainly going to be this storm here that you can see, this little band of rain that's going to be coming onto shore. There are going to be slight periods of where that cape, that instability really picks up, and there's going to be some chances for some tornadoes. There is, if we come over here to looking at the spin in the atmosphere, you can see that there is going to be some shear as this moves ashore. Let's go ahead and move this forward just a little bit so we can get closer to when it's going to be at its peak. It's right here at 6 p.m., right on the 5th there, and you can see that there's a decent amount of lower level shear as this storm pushes up against the shore. Also, a decent amount of upper level shear. If there's going to be a tornado warning today, I think it's going to be somewhere around in this spot. Also, maybe possible there near Portland as well. If we come over to the instability, which is what you need to see these storms really rise and be able to tap into those shear environments and start to spin and potentially drop a tornado, you can see there's not a whole lot, but there is a chance. There's a small chance, 2%. It's not nothing, but make sure you definitely keep an eye on that. Wouldn't be surprised if we got a tornado warning out there. If we do get one, I'm going to try to go live. And we'll be talking about that and warning people about that as it comes through. But as you can see, other than that, it's kind of the same story which we went over for the United States. We have a forecast for that. So if you want to go back over to some of my other videos, you can go check that out. Looking down here near Mexico in the Caribbean Sea here, you can see that there is still a lot of rain. I mean, look at this, going into the 7th, into the 8th, into the 9th, just a bunch of rain still working its way in there. I mean, once we get to around day 5, you can see that that rain starts to slowly dip off there, but still a decent amount of rain coming there for Central America. Also, on the very end of this model run, you can see that there is also some storms potentially firing here for a large area, and almost every single one of these spots are in a drought here. So potentially some decent drought relief. We'll go over that a little bit more in depth when I release another United States forecast. But yeah, maybe some rain in the forecast. It's kind of far out, 5 days out, so this could shift around. Don't get too excited yet, but we'll definitely keep our eye on that. Now, looking up near Canada and Alaska, you can see that this storm is going to be bringing quite a bit of snow over here in western Alaska, over here near Juneau. And if you really live anywhere on the west coast of Canada, did I say Alaska? Sorry, of Canada, you're going to be getting a decent amount of snow, a lot of snow, potentially feet of snow as this thing pushes into the land. I mean, it's pretty much a day or two there of just a bunch of snow, and that's right on the day 5 mark. If we bring this all the way back, you can see that that's going to really start today on and off with rain and snow. Then by the time we get into the 7th, it's really starting to pick up a little bit more there in Western Canada. And then as this big storm comes in right around on the 9th, that's when that snow is really going to pick up there. Also expecting some decent amount of snow once this storm starts to pick up over here in southern Alaska. But again, this is a little bit more conditional, as if this storm goes a little bit more to the south, it's not going to really do too much there for Alaska. But yeah, everywhere else across North America region is going to be getting potentially some lake effect snow, just nothing you guys aren't used to. Got a little storm over here that's going to be clipping anywhere where you have a lake. There's going to be a little bit more of an enhancement of snow there as well. Over here near Greater Sudbury, there you can see that there is a potential there for some snow as well as that moves off to the east system. It's mainly going to be a Canadian storm, but also has a small chance of dropping some snow and ice over here in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But yeah, that's it up there, at least for the precipitation here. Now we're over here on the estimated rainfall amounts, and as you can see, the main areas where we're going to be seeing some rain pickup for over the next 5 days is going to be down here in Central America. I mean, look at this, still 4 to 5, maybe even some spots of 7 to 8 inches over there near San Pedro. Going to be seeing a lot of rain also over here near La Hispaniola, seeing some parts around this coast here just to the north of Santo Domingo that could potentially get up to 5 inches of rain there. Still seeing 3 to 4 inches of rain possible over here in the Lesser Antilles, and then starting to see that rain chance pick back up here for a lot of these drought stricken stricken areas down here near Houston, where we're seeing up to potentially, a couple of inches of rain there. And then also maybe 1 to 1.5 inches there for Arkansas going into Tennessee. This is just the beginning of that, but apparently this could last a couple of days and bring quite a decent amount of rain there. So we're definitely going to be watching this pattern here to see if we can get some decent drought relief. Up here, a lot of this precipitation is snow up here in Canada and Alaska. So let's go ahead and check that out on this map here. So let's go over to the total snowfall, and you can see, yeah, right along this edge here, I mean, feet of snow, potentially 1 to 2, maybe even 3 feet of snow in some of these parts, from Alaska all the way down into the northern United States. I'm pretty sure these are mountainous regions, but there could be some lower lying spots that could also get some snow with this storm as it moves in. So this is definitely going to be a pattern that we watch here for these coastal areas where a lot of snow is going to be possible. All right, now moving down to South America, where we've been having actually quite a few tornadoes down here. A little bit surprising. The tornado season down here has been pretty intense. A couple of large tornadoes, damaging tornadoes. There's actually been reports of injuries and deaths, unfortunately, with some of these storms. But, and unfortunately, I wish I could report that that's about to end, but that does not seem to be the case. Right around here near Buenos Aires, maybe could have another chance for tornadoes. You can see that we do have some precipitation, some storms firing there. If you look over at the 800 millibar, you can see that there's a little bit of spin in the atmosphere. Also, the 500 millibar, decent amount of spin still in the atmosphere there as well. And if we come over to the surface base cape, you can see that there's a decent amount there near Rosario. And then bringing this back just to kind of line up where that starts, it's going to be really like right around the 12 p.m. region going into the rest of the evening there. There's going to be enough cape right around the Buenos Aires area with that shear environment that could bring some tornadoes. So watch out for that. We've been forecasting multiple times down here for South America, and most of the times, our forecast has come true. So make sure that you are watching that area as those storms come through. For the rest of the country, though, kind of your typical weather out there. Rain. Oh, why my nose itches so much when I talk. There's going to be rain up there in the northern portion of the spotty Amazon forest type showers there as we go into the future, and also down here near the coast on the mountainous regions, going to be expecting some more snow to potentially pile up there. And don't worry, we are going to be going over the temperatures across the globe. We are just going to do this first, and then we'll move on to the next. Also, 5 days out, seeing another storm complex over here near Rosario and Monte Video there. Let's kind of check out this just to make sure that this isn't going to be another one of those tornado producing storms. Yeah, not seeing a whole lot of cape with this one, so we're going to keep our eye on it over the next few days just to see if that builds up. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like the shear and cape environment there is going to be as dangerous as these other storms, but still probably a potential for severe weather there in South America. Coming over to the estimated precipitation totals here, you can see that, really right down here near where those severe thunderstorms are going to happen, are where the biggest flood threat's going to be, when those storms can drop down a decent amount of rain in a small period of time. So if you live in Santa Fe, Rosario, watch out for that. And also your typical rainfall amounts up here near the Amazon going up into northwestern South America there. And then over here down in the mountains, this is mainly snowfall. So let's go check that out. Yeah, over here, still expecting some snow, not as much as we've been getting up there in the mountains, but still potentially another foot to 2 feet is possible along the mountain ranges there in Chile. All right, now over here for Europe, man, you guys have been having it pretty rough up there with these couple of storms that have been coming through. I mean, one storm with 114 mile per hour winds, another one behind that with around 80 to 90 mile per hour winds. It's been pretty rough, especially along the coast here of France going into the UK there. But as of right now, there's not a whole lot on the radar, at least for that area. Again, we have another storm that's going to come through, but it's not going to be nearly as potent, not as much of a big risk there for severe weather or those damaging winds. Still going to be windy though, so make sure you're watching out on the 8th as that storm comes through. But the main story over here in Europe is actually going to be over here in Italy, as when we get into right around But around the 7th here near Rome and Naples could potentially have a little bit of a storm system here. Not too much of a lower level wind. Those upper level winds are going to be going though. So maybe potentially a large hail threat and also a decent chance for some damaging winds. So watch out there in Rome. But that's not going to be it as we move this even further forward. It starts to move into like the Greece area here, and we're definitely gonna have to watch these storms as they do that. So let's come back over to here. Still have a little bit of that lower level shear hanging around. Still have a decent amount of upper level shear with this storm as it enters into the area there. The only limiting factor is going to be that cape, but right around the coast here for Tirana and Vlora. There's a decent amount of cape there. So, it does seem like we could potentially get some severe thunderstorms down there as well. Now, coming over here, you can see that there is still a decent amount of rain that's going to be falling over here near Bordeaux, here in France. Still going to be going another additional 2 to 3 inches on top of what you guys have already gotten there. Decent amount of rain over here near Vigo and Braga here. I think that's Portugal and Spain there. And also just on the coast of northern France, could potentially see another 2 to 3 inches there as well. Over here near the UK, 1 to 2 inches is going to be possible along the western coast there, so watch out for that. Same thing with Ireland. But yeah, coming down here where we're expecting some of those bigger storms, it's going to see a little bit elevated rainfall amounts, maybe up to 3.5 inches possible over there near Mostar, into the south of that 2 inches. But yeah, mainly going to be watching out for those severe thunderstorms. Now, coming over here to this total snowfall here, you can see that, again, it's mainly going to be these mountainous regions that get the snow over here. Also over here near Dundee, potentially up to a foot of snow, maybe even higher than that, just to the north of Stirling. So make sure you are watching out for that if you live in those mountainous regions. Also over here near Norway, expecting some snow over there. Not too much on the lower levels, but I mean, it's starting to make its way down there. So potentially could see some more flakes, not just in the mountains, but also there in the lower levels. Probably going to be around a dusting though. Now looking at the Middle East and Africa, does seem like there's a little spotty rain there in Saudi Arabia. Might have to watch that. It's pretty dry area out there, so even a small storm over there could cause some flooding. So make sure you're watching out for that. For the most part, it seems like Africa's pretty dry, except for this middle band that usually has rain. So not a whole lot of change there. Little interesting little storms happening over here near Johannesburg. Just gonna check that for a severe threat. Yeah, not gonna be too severe, but definitely maybe some storms are possible. Wouldn't be surprised if one of them is severe. There is a little bit of cape down there, so might have to watch out for that. But yeah, mainly just rain there. That's going to be on the 7th there. Let's go ahead and push this forward just a little bit more. Yeah, that moves off the coast, and then it stays pretty dry down there until we get another storm system over here near Durban and Johannesburg again in South Africa. A little bit more sheer with that. Yeah, maybe just to the south of Durban, some severe weather threat could exist. But if you don't get any storms firing there, then it'll probably be a pretty marginal threat there. But yeah, so that's it for that. Let's go over to the total precipitation here. As you can see, right across in the middle portion of Africa is where we're going to be seeing, the biggest rainfall amounts. But this is nothing that you guys aren't used to. Just make sure that you're watching out for that flooding as it comes through. And then also over here near Johannesburg, maybe up to some isolated spots of 3 inches of rain are going to be possible down there. So make sure you are watching out for that. Also over here in the Middle East, you can see that there is a decent amount of rainfall going to be coming here for your area. That is at least an inch, maybe even an isolated spot of 2 inches there near Jeddah. But yeah, other than that, not a whole lot of rain in any of the other spots in the Middle East and in Africa. If we come over to the total snowfall, no total snowfall is expected for your guys' region. Now coming over to Central South Asia here, you can see that down here in southern India, we're going to be seeing some increased rainfall pretty much for a couple of days. Really got to watch out for flooding on the southern tip there of India, where that's going to be a lot of rain that compiles there and drops there. We'll go over those rain amounts, expected rain amounts here in a second. But yeah, what you're watching around that. We also have a decent storm that's going to be coming off of the coast here and heading towards Japan over the next day or so. I mean, look at this. This is a full-fledged storm here. You got snow on the north side. You got those stronger storms on a line there coming over to Japan. Let's go over to Wow, look at that. Very strong winds, potentially aloft here in the lower levels. That could cause some spin in the atmosphere. Also, those upper level winds are there as well. Let's go look at the Cape. Let's really hope that there's not a lot of Cape with this storm. Yeah, looking like the Cape is a little bit on the low side. Let's push this forward just a little bit, though. Yeah, Cape's a little bit on the lower side, but like really anywhere around the Tokyo and Osaka region is where you're going to have, the chances for those stronger storms. Definitely some severe weather possible with this setup. I wouldn't be surprised if a spin up tried to happen, so make sure you're watching out for that. The sheer environment looks pretty dangerous with this storm, and if you live, over in the northern part of this storm here, make sure that you're watching out for that snow there in China, and then going over to the east of China there. Decent amount of snow is going to be expected on the northern portion of that storm. Now, zooming out and then coming over here to the total precipitation, you can see that down here in southern India, where we were talking about that lot of rain there, I mean, we're talking about 4 to 5 inches, maybe even some isolated spots there of 7 inches all around here. Near Ballari, Bengaluru, Mysuru, Madura. Sorry about that, guys. Really horrible at pronouncing any other name than American. And yes, it's because I am that typical American. I'm trying to learn it, but it's going to take a while. I mean, the world is a big place. But yes, lots of rain down here. Flood chances really from Solapur all the way down to the southern tip there of India. Also, a decent amount of rain over here on this island here as well. So watch out there. The rain amounts over here with this storm in Japan is going to be, right around those 3 to 4 inches. The biggest spots of rain are going to be around the Tokyo region and south of Takamatsu there. So make sure you're watching out for the flood threat as well as the severe weather threat with that storm that's coming through. Looking up a little bit further to the north, we're going to go over to the total snowfall. You can see that there's a lot of snow that's going to be dropping with this storm. I mean, a big long strip of 1 to 2 feet of snow is going to be possible in this region. Also, some snow in the northern part of Japan there as well. So watch out for that. Travel conditions could get a pretty messy and slick there. So make sure you have a plan in place to deal with that. Food, extra water just in case the power does go out there. All right. Last but certainly not least is going to be Australia and New Zealand here. And let me tell you, the fire season has gotten off to a pretty big start over here in Australia. I might pull that up here in just a moment. I don't have it set up, but I might set it up before we do the next slide. But yeah, look at this big drought still happening over here in Australia, which happens a lot. It's usually pretty dry down here, but for some reason this year the fires are really getting started. Not much has changed. Looking at over the next 5 days, starting today, going in. I mean, there's still rain on the eastern side near Sydney and Melbourne is going to be possible. Kind of looks like a shortwave down there. Let me check that out. Probably isn't anything, but always got to check out these little guys. Yeah, maybe some storms over there near Sydney and Canberra. Let me see what the Cape is looking like with this. Yeah, look at that. Maybe a little bit of a severe threat there for southeastern Australia. Oh yeah, look, right before that convex, maybe even a small tornado threat. Wouldn't rule that out as well. Very interesting. A little shortwave trough there coming through the southern part of Australia. But yeah, I mean, looking at the whole of Australia, pretty dry for the most part. Watching that fire risk over there. We'll see if we can pull that up again. Shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, other than that one little storm that comes through there, maybe another chance in the far future with this trough approaching. So that'll probably be in the next forecast where we're talking about this trough coming through the Melbourne and Sydney area. For the most part, that's it for the storms in this region. And now also we're going to go look at New Zealand as well. So let's come down here, get the precipitation type up, and then look at New Zealand, which I honestly would love. Guys, if anybody from New Zealand ever watches my videos and you're tied with the government down there, hit them up. I want to live in New Zealand. I love New Zealand. Anyways, but yeah, here's New Zealand. A decent amount of rain is possible up there for northern New Zealand as that storm moves in. Kind of looks like another little shortwave trough. Maybe some severe weather will be possible there. Maybe like some damaging winds are going to be possible with that, but nothing really too much to write home. Probably will be some thunder and rain though, if I had to guess, and that's going to be on the 7th there. Let's come back over to here. But yeah, other than that, I mean, really not too much to write home about with this storm as it moves through. Another storm system is going to come through, near the Wellington and Christchurch area, and then that's going to move off to the north. So some rain is possible, maybe a little chance for thunderstorms as well. If we come over here to the total precipitation, you can see it's not a whole lot, for a lot of these areas. I mean, even though we're going to be getting some storms over here, still not dropping too much precipitation, maybe 1-2 inches possible near Melbourne, south of Canberra, along the eastern coast here of Australia, also up here in northern New Zealand when their storms are coming through, maybe 2 to 3 inches are going to be possible there just north of Napier. Coming over to the total snowfall, not expecting much in these regions except for over here in New Zealand in the mountainous regions. Could potentially get 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches of snow up there, but other than that, that's about it for the snowfall. Moving on to the temperature anomalies here in North America, we got a big warm up coming here. I mean, most of the country is going to be above average, and it's going to be hottest over there in the central portion of America, there in Canada looking like below average, and in Mexico looking a little bit below average. The further north you go, though, in Mexico, the hotter you're going to be. But yeah, potentially up to 20 degrees above average up there for Nebraska, going into Iowa and Minnesota there, and then pushing this forward. That sticks around for about a day or two, and then that moves off to the east where it really sticks around. We get that one little burst of heat, and then we get another burst of heat behind that. I'm going to be releasing a video on this warm up tomorrow. I mean, this is pretty big. This is definitely a fall heat wave, and it's going to stick around for a little bit there in the Ohio Valley, Illinois, going into Oklahoma, into the southeast as well. I mean, we're talking up to 20 degrees, maybe a little bit higher than that, above average. And then, as we get into November 8th here, you can see that it starts to cool down on the west coast, and it starts to warm up in Alaska, going into Canada, and also a little bit further down there into Mexico, pushing this even further. Still some warm temperatures sticking around, but then once we get into the 5-day period, things start to get a little bit more mild and not too bad for a lot of the country in terms of those heat, that above average heat there does seem to be warming up there in Mexico. Looking up here into Canada and Alaska, seeing some extra heat up there, but nothing too big to write home about up there. Coming over here to Europe, the biggest above normal temperatures are over here in Russia, and as I push this forward, you can see that it's pretty mild across Europe right now, but a little bit of cooler than average temperatures, kind of just like average there in Spain and Portugal. And then, slowly as we push this through, really looks like maybe a slight cool down could occur right there. So yeah, mostly are going to stay right around average, pretty mild temperatures out there, perfect, pretty much. About as average as you can get out here in Europe. So that's your temperature report. What you're used to during this time is what you're going to get. Coming over here to Central and South Asia here, you can see we got India, China on the map here, and looks like India is going to stay above average for the most part. Noticing a big below average part happening over here in northeastern China, and then also above average over here in Japan still. And then, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot change. That below average kind of stays around in northern China there. And then it's still, look how much heat is out here above average. I mean, this is a large swath of the planet, all above average, and some pretty hot temperatures over there in just to the north and west of India there. And India is still kind of baking pretty much for the whole week here. And then a little bit hotter temperatures start picking up there in China and India, and then pushing this all the way through to day 4 here. Still kind of the same pattern. Not a whole lot's changed. Above average in the north. Below average in the north, above average in the south, and then pushing this all the way through. That colder temperatures start to invade a little bit into southern China there, and it starts to cool down in southern India there, as that that rain's still going to be existent, but in northern India still going to be above average. So that unfortunately doesn't really seem like that heat is going anywhere for northern India just yet, but you do have a pretty substantial cool down there for northern Canada, the Mongolia, Kazakhstan, I think, or Turkmenistan area, if I'm correct. There could be completely wrong. I still need to learn these countries. But yeah, and then for Japan, it's going to stay pretty much above average until that storm system that we were talking about earlier comes through and brings that cooler air into the future. But yeah, so that's what's going on here in southeastern central Asia there. Now coming over here to Australia, it's going to be above average. There's not going to be a whole lot of changes over here in Australia. No really big storm systems until we get some of that rain that comes through. You can see there's a little bit of a cool down there in southeastern Australia, but for the most part, Australia is going to be staying a little bit above average unless you live in the northeastern part of Australia, where a cool down does seem to be in the forecast. And then once we get into Friday, could potentially have a little bit of a cool down on the western side of Australia. So definitely some things to watch out for as these things come through. This heat is going to contribute to that fire risk, dries out the ground a little bit faster, and you have this cool on the backside. Should give some people some relief, but it's mainly going to be just normal temperature. It's not really going to be too below normal temperatures, with the main dominating story here in Australia is going to be that storm and those above average temperatures. Coming over to South America and Africa, focusing on South America first, you can see it's still going to be above average there in the northern portion. Not too much changes. A little bit of a cool down though when you go into Thursday here. Also down there, we're going to be seeing those storms. Going to see a cool down around there as well. But yeah, pretty high above average as well there in South America. And then looking over and then pushing this all the way through to the 5th day here, not a whole lot of changes. It's kind of been the same pattern over and over here for South America. We get those storms with the tornado risk down in the south. We get that snow in the mountains. We get that rain in the rainforest. And it's just been staying above average and below average in those areas for quite a while now. Moving this all the way back, you can see over here in Africa and the Middle East, it's going to be hot. Hot on Monday, way above average there for you guys, and then way above average the next day. Staying cooler on the southern part, pretty much around average in the central and southern part of Africa. But yeah, over there in the Middle East and northern Africa, it's going to stay well above average pretty much for the whole week. Not really seeing any change, and in fact, it gets even hotter potentially as we move further into the future. That was a little bit too far out there, but yeah, I mean, the main story here: hot in the north, cold in the south. Looks like a little bit of a heat up though right around the day 5 region on Friday could be happening there for southern Africa. Now we're going to do something a little bit new here, but we won't spend too much time because no one really lives up here, but I've always wanted to keep people up to date on what's going on with the ice caps and everything. So up here in the Arctic, it's going to be way above average pretty much all week. Look at this. I mean, we're talking 10 degrees to 15 degrees above average. Went a little bit too far there for most of the Arctic. And then look over here, right around the Arctic Circle near the Yamal Peninsula there in Russia. Could potentially get up to even 30 degrees above average. Really hot up here. Unfortunately, we have a lot of permafrost fields up there, so potentially some extra methane releases could be happening as that comes through, but it should be too cold for that. It should be too cold, so fingers crossed. But yeah, a lot of heat still trapped in the Arctic. It's not going to do much to melt anything or to slow down the freeze just because of how cold it is right now up there, but just something to note up there. Now coming down to Antarctica, you can see that it's going to get pretty warm there just to the south of South America as that heat pushes in. I mean, we're talking 20 degrees above average in that region, even some spots there of 30 degrees above average, and it looks like a pretty substantial heat up is in the books here for Antarctica. We have a lot of areas, right around average and a little bit colder than average there for Antarctica. But for the most part, I mean, look at this. Big heat going to be building up here as we go closer into day 5 there for Antarctica. And so let's go see what that has to do with the ice. This is the current ice. As you can see, it's a little bit below average. The orange line here is the medium ice edge, so that's just average of what it should be. You can see it's a below average right now, but in terms of compared to like other years, it's that we've had recently where it's way below average, it's not too bad. The ice is a little bit thin on the edges, which is how it typically is, a little bit thinner there near Russia, but for the most part it is refreezing, so that's good. Here it is compared to the median average is still pretty well below average, but as you can see, 2012, there has been years where it's been more below average than this. Let's go over to Antarctica now. Now, Antarctica is a different story. We've had a big melt season down here in Antarctica, and as you can see, there is, if you look around the edges here, this is a big area. So even though it looks like a small deficit there, it's actually a pretty large area. The doesn't have ice that should have ice. And yeah, and as you can see, it is missing a lot of ice there. Coming over here, not only is it missing a lot of ice, a lot of that ice is thinner than usual. This is a little bit concerning here that Antarctica is really losing a lot of this much ice and is this wet, much below average. Going into September and October, the standard deviation from the average was a sigma 6, which is huge. You're definitely getting a statistical anomaly here in Antarctica, so definitely watching out for that. Compared to the average, as you can see, it's well below average here in the southern ice cap or the northern ice cap, depending on how you look at the world. There really isn't any true north or south, but yeah, I mean, definitely below average over here in Antarctica. All right, last but not least, as promised, I told you guys I would show you what's going on down here. Look at all this. All these little red dots here, those are fires over here. This is in Australia, and yeah, a bunch of fires over here in Australia. A lot of them are burning pretty quickly. Definitely gonna have to monitor this situation because this could be like one of those scenarios where we start to get a lot of carbon release into the atmosphere with these fires, and also health effects from that smoke is going to be possible as well. And also, if anybody lives out in this area, which it doesn't seem like there's too many people, but could be a danger to life and property. But yeah, look at that smoke coming out of the region and all of these fires so far. So definitely keep an eye on this if you live in Australia. This is definitely one of those scenarios where it could get out of hand pretty quickly, like it did in Canada. So just make sure you monitor these very closely. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching another Earth forecast. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It does help out the channel a lot if you made it this far. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next one.